What's up guys, I'm Paul and welcome to my channel. Now in this video I'm going to be answering the question, is WordPress a good option for building an e-commerce website? And this is becoming a very important question because WordPress is growing and growing in terms of popularity. In fact, it's the largest website builder platform in the world. And even though its lineage starts all the way back with just basic blogs, it's now become a more all-round platform. So you can build blogs on it, you can build business websites, and over the past decade or so it's become a very popular option for e-commerce websites as well, amongst many other types of websites. But is it actually a good option? And say that's what I'm going to be answering in this video. And to answer this, I'm going to be looking at some pros and cons of the WordPress platform when it comes to the world of e-commerce. Now I do just want to give a quick history into myself and my history with WordPress so that you can see that I do actually have an idea of what I'm talking about when it comes to the WordPress platform. Because I've actually been building WordPress sites since 2015. And since I started using WordPress, I've built blogs, I've built business websites, and I've also built e-commerce websites as well. And I actually ran an e-commerce website for over 2 years using the WordPress plus WooCommerce combination. So I do have a lot of experience with WordPress, and I do use it to run my 2 current sites at the moment. So I'm still using WordPress every single day. So with the introduction and my history out of the way, let's get into the pros and cons. So the first pro is WordPress is an open source platform. And what this means is when you build a WordPress site, you're the owner of the site. You're not renting it like you are if you're using someone like Shopify or Ecommerce. And what this means is you get much more control over your website. So if you're with a hosting provider and you're not happy with the service you're getting, you can basically up and move your WordPress site to another host without any disruption to your actual website, and you're not going to have to build a new website from scratch. Whereas if you're with a hosted provider like Shopify and you decide you want to move to Ecommerce, for example, you're going to need to go and build a complete new website from scratch. So when you're with WordPress, you have much more control over your site and the direction that your site takes because it's your site, you are the owner of it. And this is definitely a pro. The second pro when it comes to WordPress is there's lots of options when it comes to adding e-commerce functionality to a WordPress website. Now, when most people think of WordPress and e-commerce, they instantly think of WooCommerce, but it's actually one of many options out there. There's other plugins such as Ease Digital Downloads, which is basically primarily for digital products. But also there's hosted e-commerce platforms that have created plugins for the WordPress platform. And what this means is that you can add fully hosted e-commerce functionality to a self-hosted WordPress site. And these are options like Ecommerce and BigCommerce. And then if you want to not use a plugin, you could actually use Shopify with it, which is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I will leave a link in the card and also in the description to a video I've done showing exactly how you can do that. So there are many different options when it comes to adding e-commerce to a WordPress website. And once again, this just gives you lots of control over your WordPress site and the direction you choose to go with it. Now, the third pro of WordPress when it comes to e-commerce is you can actually use it for way more than just e-commerce, which can be a limiting factor with other platforms. This is because WordPress is a CMS, it's a content management system, and this means you can use it for lots of different things. So you can have a blog on your site. It's very good for blogging as it is primarily a blogging platform. But say you can also add e-commerce to it. You can also add things like memberships, subscriptions, you can add forums. There's many different options you can add when it comes to WordPress that are way more than just e-commerce. So you can build a much more rounded website and business rather than just an e-commerce website, which just gives lots of flexibility and lots of options to the WordPress platform, and also more potential money-making opportunities for you as the website owner. So the fourth pro of the WordPress platform is it's got a massive online community. In fact, it's the largest community of any platform out there. And this is because WordPress is so popular and it's used for so many different things. Even e-commerce when it comes to WordPress has got a massive community. And while this is great in terms of online resources because there's lots of people who do guides and tutorials, it also means there's lots of tools out there such as plugins and themes that you can also use with WordPress. And this means there's just massive amount of options out there and massive choice for you to decide exactly what you want your WordPress website to look like and also operate like as well. And usually with every single plugin, there's a few guides out there to help you get started. And this online community can be a hugely helpful resource, especially if you run into any problems. Now, I know all those pros make WordPress sound like a great option for e-commerce, but unfortunately there are a few cons as well, and I'm going to cover those next. So the first con of WordPress is it's open source. And I know I said this was a pro, but the reason why this is a con is for security reasons. This is because everybody has access to the WordPress source code, and the not so nice people out there have used this to find vulnerabilities in the WordPress system and have hacked into people's websites. Now, things like blogs and business websites, this can be more frustrating than anything else. But when it comes to e-commerce websites, you may have people's personal information on your WordPress site. So this could be things like people's names, addresses, email addresses, and contact telephone numbers, which is information that lots of not so nice people would love to have access to. Now, fortunately, if you're using the likes of PayPal and Stripe, you won't be actually processing credit card transactions on your site directly, so you won't have that kind of real sensitive data on your site, but you'll still have people's personal information. And unless you know what you're doing when it comes to securing a WordPress site, you can be leaving yourself wide open. And if you do get a breach and a hack, you're going to have some issues when you've got to go through and explain to all of your customers that there was a hack on your site and all of their information is now out there online somewhere. So it is one of the issues with WordPress is security, and it does take a bit of time to actually understand how to secure a WordPress site, especially when you're running an e-commerce website on the WordPress platform. So the second con when it comes to WordPress is it can be unreliable. And this is because when you're running a WordPress site, you're going to need to install plugins and themes, and these need to be updated, and also the core WordPress gets updated. In fact, just a couple of days ago, there was a major update to the WordPress system. And what happens is WordPress updates, then all the plugins need to catch up and update as well, so they're compatible with the new major core update. And the one plugin I had the most problems with when it comes to reliability was actually WooCommerce. And this is because the way it works is you have a WordPress core update, then the main WooCommerce plugin needs to update, then all the plugins associated with WooCommerce need to update. And if these aren't updated in time, you can run into issues with things not working or things just flat out breaking on your site. And this can lead to many stressful days and sleepless nights when things aren't working properly. And the problem is you don't have anybody you can really just call on unless you happen to have a WordPress/WooCommerce developer available to you. So reliability can be a big issue with WordPress, and that is why when it comes to using WordPress for e-commerce, I always recommend going for a hosted solution, something like Ecommerce that integrates really well, or even the Shopify buy button, because you don't have to worry about the updates on the e-commerce side of your website, because that's all taken care of by the platform that you're using. You just have to make sure that WordPress itself is working, not having to make sure that all the e-commerce parts of your website are working as well, because this can be super stressful, and lots of people have had problems with plugin updates breaking their site. It could be actually breaking their site so it stops working, or actually just breaking parts of the site. So maybe the checkout stops working because your payment gateway plugin isn't working effectively. So this is one of the issues with WooCommerce and pretty much any other open source platform, is reliability can be an issue. So the third con of using WordPress for e-commerce is that you need to optimize the site. And when you're just getting started with WordPress, this can be quite a daunting task because there's so many things you need to work on in order to make sure your WordPress site works effectively. And what I mean by this is that it's fast and it works well on mobile devices. Because if you just start installing plugins and themes and you don't work on the optimization side of things, you could have a seriously slow website. So it is something you need to address. And once again, it takes time to understand how to do this. Yes, there's lots of plugins out there that can help, but you still need to understand what you're doing in order to optimize it properly and make sure that you don't actually break the site when you're doing optimization. Now, there is one thing you can do that can help to optimize your site, and that's to use managed WordPress hosting. This is because it offers a lot of benefits over shared hosting, which is what most people actually get started with when they're using WordPress. This is because managed WordPress hosting is a specific environment just for WordPress websites. And not only does it generally perform better than shared hosting, but it's also more secure than shared hosting because it's just set up for WordPress. And also you do generally get support from the actual hosting company to help you run your WordPress site. So you can ask them questions on things like optimization, on security, on performance. All these things, you've got somebody there you can ask questions about, and they'll be able to offer you some advice. You'll also be able to ask questions when it comes to updating your site as well, and this can prevent any kind of issues with downtime or your site breaking. So it can be really useful to go with managed WordPress hosting, because it just gives you somebody you can contact and ask questions about, and they're generally experts in the WordPress platform as well. So managed WordPress hosting is definitely something you do want to consider if you're serious about building an e-commerce website using the WordPress platform. Now, there is one thing I haven't covered in this video, and that is pricing. And this is because for me, pricing is neither a pro or a con, because it can vary so much with WordPress websites. And it also depends not only on the site itself and the requirements for the site, but also the person building it. Someone like myself who's got quite a bit of experience using WordPress, it won't cost me a lot in terms of time and investment to actually build a WordPress website and then to maintain it on a monthly basis. But if you're brand new to e-commerce and you need to get a developer in, or you're building a website that requires specific functionality and you're going to have to pay for premium plugins and premium themes, your WordPress website can become quite expensive quite quickly. So because of this variation, I can't put price into a pro or a con, because it could be either depending on your situation. So is WordPress good for e-commerce? It depends, and it very much depends on you. Because if you've got a history with WordPress, so you've built blogs or you've built business websites, it can be a very good option because you already know the platform, you know how to maintain it, you know how to optimize it, how to secure it. It can be a very good option if you already know about the WordPress platform. Also, if you've got an existing WordPress website, you might as well use that as the base for your e-commerce website as well. Now, you can add e-commerce directly to your actual WordPress site, or you can add it to a subdomain. Either way, it's worth sticking with your main WordPress website because you're already going to have some authority with that site, and it can be a big upheaval to move to another platform. So if you've got an existing WordPress site and you want to add e-commerce functionality, I'd say stick with WordPress. But if you are new to e-commerce, WordPress wouldn't be my recommendation. This is because the learning curve is so much greater than it is with other platforms, because you've got to sort your host now, you've got to learn about hosting, what's going to be good, what's going to be bad. Then you've got to learn how to build a WordPress website. Then you've got to learn how to optimize it, how to secure it, how to update and maintain it. Then you've got to learn how to build e-commerce into that website as well. It's a multi-stage process, and it takes a while to learn every single one of those stages. Whereas if you went with someone like Shopify or BigCommerce, they take care of a lot of those steps for you. All you need to do is learn how to use the platform and then basically run it on a day-to-day basis. You can just deal on the business side of things, the marketing, the sales, things like that. You don't have to worry about being a web developer as well, which is something you do need to add to your repertoire if you're going to be using WordPress. So that is my conclusion of WordPress and whether or not it's good for e-commerce. And say it very much depends on you and your situation as to whether it is a good option for you. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think WordPress is a good option for building e-commerce websites? I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you found this helpful, please drop a like on the video because it really does help the channel out. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do by buying me a coffee using the link in the description below, and it's very much appreciated. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.